What is attentional bias? How do our decisions depend on what captures our attention? Before answering the questions, let's first look at how attention works. Do your eyes involuntarily dart toward a fast-moving object, or a loud noise snap you out of your deepest thought? That's your brain focusing on what's important and sometimes what's crucial to your survival. Our brain consumes around 20% of our metabolic energy even at rest. That's the equivalent of running a low-wattage LED bulb. Our brain works tirelessly, but there is an upper limit to how much information they can process at any given moment. In decision-making, a critically scarce resource is not information itself, but rather attention. We often allocate excessive attention to gathering information, but devote insufficient attention to what we pay attention to. Imagine your brain as a diligent employee working around the clock, sorting through information, and prioritizing tasks. When you're focused on the task, your brain shifts more energy towards it, taking resources away from other functions. It's a game of give and take, and the currency? Attention. When we say pay attention, we do pay for it at a mental cost. It's a trade-off of mental energy. Think of attention as a spotlight. Selectively highlight certain stimuli while pushing other information to the periphery. When you stand in a crowded room with people talking, music playing, lights flickering, and aroma from delicious food, you're bombarded with sensory information: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. But you don't process all of it consciously. Why is that? The answer lies in our attentional filter. The attentional filter is a mechanism in our brain that helps us focus on what's important while filtering out the rest. It decides where the spotlight of attention should be pointed. It's like a director of our personal mental movie, choosing which scenes get the spotlight and which ones are relegated to the background. If attention is a process, then the attentional filter is the tool that guides this process. Without the attentional filter, our attention would be aimless. When we daydream, our attentional filter relaxes and becomes less strict, and we disengage from the immediate environment and start generating our own internal thoughts and fantasies. Daydreaming allows our thought to wander and our minds to explore different concepts or scenarios. Although daydreaming may seem like a state of not paying attention, our mind is still actively engaged, generating its own internal stimuli. This is why daydreaming is often associated with imagination and creativity. However, excessive or prolonged daydreaming that interferes with daily functioning or tasks may also be a sign of attention-related issues, such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Let's come back to the attentional filter. How does the attentional filter decide what's important and what's not? Well, it does so based on a couple of key principles. First, it prioritizes information based on its perceived importance. This could be something crucial to our survival, such as when a person looks angry coming towards you with something in hand, alerting you to a potential threat. Similarly, in a dark parking lot, your attentional filter may prioritize the sound of footsteps approaching from behind, signaling the need for heightened awareness. The attentional system also takes into account stimuli that deviate from the expected or normal, like the strange sound of a door opening at night, which may prompt us to investigate potential sources of danger or unfamiliar situations. By selectively attending to those salient and potentially significant cues, the attentional system helps us allocate our cognitive resources efficiently and respond appropriately to our environment. scarcity changes how we allocate our attention. When resources are scarce, whether it's money or time, it commands our attention because our brains consider scarcity as a potential threat to our survival. When faced with an immediate deadline, our attention naturally gravitates toward that looming task. Picture yourself as a seminary student, and you're on your way to deliver a sermon on the Good Samaritan, which is about the only person who stopped to help someone in distress on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. As you're heading to deliver this sermon, you see a stranger moaning on the ground, clearly in need of help. But you've been told that you are late for your sermon. Faced with the time scarcity, does it influence whether you would stop to help the stranger? You might like to think that it would not make a difference. After all, you see yourself as a helpful person. But in a real-life experiment, 90% of seminary students, just like you in this hypothetical scenario, overlooked the immediate opportunity to embody the Good Samaritan because they were rushing to give a sermon about it. But the more time those seminary students thought they had, the more likely they were to stop and lend a helping hand. This shows that time pressure can effectively narrow the breadth of our attention, leading to tunnel vision. What signals are considered important by the attentional filter is very subjective, depending on life experience and personal relevance. I was chased by a stray dog as a child. That frightening experience created a strong memory that still influences my attention and emotional responses to unfamiliar dogs. That memory still influences how my attentional filter prioritizes certain stimuli. I still get nervous around unleashed dogs that I'm not familiar with. My response is automatic, driven by past fear and self-preservation. How my attentional filter processes stimuli can be very different from other dog owners. Here is another example. In the aftermath of the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013, people's attentional filters were highly attuned to potential threats. The bombing created a heightened sense of awareness and concern about public safety. As a result, more people paid attention to unattended bags in public places, recognizing them as potentially suspicious objects that warranted further scrutiny. The perceived importance of identifying any potential threats was significantly heightened due to the recent event. In organizations, what are important signals? Social dynamics and hierarchies. This is why we often pay more attention to our supervisors than our subordinates. Our attentional filter recognizes the significance of cues coming from those in position of authority or higher rank, because they have more control over resource allocation, which influence our feelings, thoughts, and behavior. This prioritization allows us to stay attuned to direction, feedback, or important information provided by our supervisors. However, not paying enough attention to subordinates undermines our decision-making. We may overlook valuable insights and accurate information that subordinates have. They have first-hand knowledge of day-to-day operations, customer interactions, or specific challenges within their roles. Ignoring their perspectives and expertise leads to poor decisions. The second principle the attentional filter follows is change, particularly sudden change. If there is a sudden change in our environment, say a room going dark or a sudden drop in temperature, our attentional filter helps redirect our focus toward it. The attentional filter is constantly active. Even when you are asleep, monitoring the environment for potentially threatening signal, it remains vigilant to sudden changes that could indicate danger. When you are asleep, your attentional filter is still at work. Suddenly, a loud clap of thunder rings out, and the attentional filter instantly prioritizes this sudden change as a potential threat. you startle awake, with your senses heightened, ready to assess the situation and ensure your safety. Similarly, when an alarm clock abruptly sounds, your attentional filter immediately recognizes this sudden change and prioritizes it as an important signal to wake you up from sleep. In the workplace, when you propose significant changes in strategies, policies, or goals, you activate your teammates' attentional filter. The sudden shift in direction or approach captures attention because it represents a change from the established norms or routines. In the case of fraud or embezzlement, when a large amount of money goes missing, it immediately captures your attention. The suddenness and magnitude of such a situation triggers alarm bells and prompt an immediate response, as you recognize the potential impact on financial stability and legal implications. However, when fraud and embezzlement occurs in smaller amounts over an extended period, such as ongoing embezzlement through small transactions, your attentional filter may not readily detect the signal. The gradual change goes relatively unnoticed due to its lack of suddenness and magnitude that typically triggers attention. As a result, you may not pay sufficient attention to the subtle signs or discrepancies that accumulate over time, allowing the illegal activities to continue undetected. In essence, the attentional filter serves as our mental gatekeeper, selectively determine which sensory inputs reach our conscious awareness. It's not a bug or a flaw. Rather, it's our brain's brilliant strategy to conserve energy for our survival. It helps us sift through a sea of sensory information we encounter daily, fine-tunes our focus to what's more important, and allows us to function efficiently and effectively in a world brimming with sensory stimuli. If we had to pay attention to and process every piece of information we encounter, it would be like trying to drink from a fire hose, not to mention an immense drain on our mental resources. How does attentional bias influence our decision-making? Attention is inherently selective. Any distraction can divert our attention from important tasks or situations. During the meeting, when notifications pops up on your phone or laptops, your attention can be easily diverted from the ongoing discussion. It disrupts the flow and effectiveness of the entire meeting, wasting everyone's time. To improve the quality of a meeting and a better attentional focus, it's advisable to leave digital devices outside of the meeting room and encourage other meeting attendees to do the same. By minimizing external distractions, the attentional filter can prioritize and maintain focus on the meeting's objectives and discussions. This intentional selection of attention helps create a more attentive and productive meeting environment, allowing participants to actively listen, contribute, and engage in meaningful exchanges. Remember, attention is a precious cognitive resource, and anything that distracts our attention can have a negative impact on our cognitive function. Our ability to effectively allocate and sustain attention is essential for performing tasks, problem-solving, learning, and maintaining cognitive performance. Loud noise can diminish our ability to perform cognitive tasks. In an elementary school in the heart of New York City, students were grappling an unexpected adversary. Their classrooms were located too close to the ever-vibrating subway tracks, with trains thundering past every few minutes. Their reading scores took a significant hit. After installing noise-dampening materials on the tracks and within the classroom, the students' scores started to climb upwards. It was as if a fog had lifted from their minds, allowing them to focus more effectively on their task at hand. Chronic exposure to noise can create a sensory overload, causing stress responses in our body. This can lead to diminished cognitive performance in areas like memory, attention, and problem solving. It's not just about being annoyed by the sound. The continuous need to filter out the noise can erode our attention and exhaust our cognitive resources, leading to decreased performance and heightened stress levels. A quieter, more serene environment is conducive to better concentration and improved cognitive function. Noise is not the only factor that can erode our attention and deplete our cognitive resources. Our eyes can be just as noisy, if not more so, thanks to a barrage of visual stimuli the eyes have to process. Take a moment and glance around your office. What do you see? If you are surrounded by excessive decorations, they can distract you and eat away at your attention. Think of this way. Each piece of decoration is a splash of color or a shape that your brain has to process, taking away a small chunk of your cognitive bandwidth. One study reported that classrooms filled with distractions, those heavily decorated walls with posters, maps, and artwork, were associated with lower test scores for students. If you want to make better decisions, whether in your professional or personal life, controlling your sensory environment can be a game changer. Keep noise and visual distractions at bay. This does not mean that you turn your office or home into a sensory deprivation tank. Rather, it's about creating an environment conducive to concentration and clear thinking. Just as a composer needs quiet to hear the notes, or the painter needs a clean canvas to create, we too require a level of tranquility to make good decisions. In practical terms, this could mean dialing down the noise level in your surroundings, or decluttering your workspace to reduce visual noise. Remember, each distracting sound, each intrusive visual is a tiny drain on your cognitive resources you could be using to make better decisions. The open floor plan in offices was initially adopted with the intention of fostering collaboration, teamwork, and a sense of equality. However, it's precisely the challenge we've been discussing, issues of constant noise, visual distractions, and a lack of privacy that have made many employees and organizations rethink this approach. An open office plan can easily flood our senses with an overload of stimuli. Conversations among colleagues, phone calls, typing on keyboards, not to mention visual distractions from the movement of people. All those aspects can consume a significant proportion of our attention. Remember, our brain has a limited capacity for processing information, and those distractions can seriously undermine our ability to focus and be productive. Moreover, not all tasks benefit from collaboration and open communication. Certain work, such as in-depth analysis, strategic planning, and creative tasks, often requires a level of solitude and quiet for optimal focus and innovative thinking. So it's no surprise that many organizations are reconsidering the open office plan, exploring alternatives that can strike a balance between collaboration and focus. Solutions like soundproof booths, partitioned spaces, or flexible seating arrangements are becoming increasingly popular. To make better decisions, you also need to pay attention to your choice set. Adding a seemingly irrelevant choice, also known as decoy, can influence your decision-making process. The decoy option captures your attention by emphasizing a salient attribute. By highlighting this attribute, the decoy option makes it easier for you to compare and evaluate choices, ultimately impacting your final decisions. For example, you are selecting a vendor for an important project. You have narrowed down the options to two potential vendors, Vendor A and Vendor B. Vendor A offers a comprehensive solution at a higher cost, while vendor B provides a more basic solutions at a lower cost. Now, a decoy option, vendor C, is introduced into the choice set. Vendor C offers a solution that is similar to vendor A in terms of features and price, but it includes an additional service that is not essential for the project's requirements. The decoy, vendor C, draws your attention to the added service, making it stand out as a salient attribute. Your attentional filter is swayed by this decoy option, and you may become more inclined to choose vendor A, even though vendor B might have been the more practical and cost-effective choice without the distraction of the decoy. The attentional bias caused by the decoy option can influence the leader's decision-making process, directing attention towards an attribute that may not be crucial for the project's success. When making decisions as a group, leaders should expand the group's collective attention breadth rather than narrow it. Leaders can assign group members to pay attention to different aspects of each option. Leaders can also appoint certain members as devil's advocates, whose role in the group decision-making process is to present opposing arguments and propose alternative options. Have you noticed that power influences what we pay attention to? Feeling powerful can cause our attentional system to shine a brighter spotlight on ourselves, diverting attention away from others. Now let's do a thought experiment. Think back to a truly inspiring event from the last 5 years. Now picture yourself sharing this story with a stranger named Joe. As you tell your story, Joe listens attentively. When you finish, he reciprocates by sharing his inspirational story. Once you both finished, you rate how inspired you are by your own story and Joe's. If you were to feel powerful in front of Joe, you'd likely rate your own story as more inspiring than Joe's. Feeling powerful shifts your attention from others to yourself. This self-focused attentional shift does not arise from the quality of the stories. Instead, it is the feeling of powerful that amplifies our own experiences and diminishes our response to those of others. When high-power people seem deaf to ideas, it could be that their limited attention is laser-focused on themselves, not you. However, this goes against the essence of leadership, which requires leaders to pay more attention to others and motivate them towards a collective goal. Power often leads to an elevated sense of control over others, which can diminish our ability to interact with others effectively. When we feel powerful, we become less inclined to seek advice from others, take their perspectives, express gratitude, and demonstrate kindness. However, those are critical skills for making high-quality decisions, and they can be undermined by an inflated sense of power. It's no surprise that we often encountered high-power people who are dismissive, arrogant, interrupt others, speak out of turn, and self-centered, placing their own interests above the group's, and have ethical lapses. You've probably seen the classic, "Do you know who I am?" scenario. You know the type. Good leaders understand and harness the power of attention. They understand that their attention is a precious resource, and they actively manage it. They surround themselves with people who help them focus on what's important. When you meet with them, they are not just physically present, they're mentally and emotionally present too. They don't glance at their phones in the middle of a conversation or scanning the crowd for someone more influential to talk to. Instead, they are right there with you, maintaining eye contact, reading your body language, and even synchronizing their own body language with yours. They not only mirror your body language, but also your words. This form of mimicking can create a deep connection, and it shows you they're not just hearing you, they are truly listening. They make you feel like you are the most important person in the room. And that's because in that moment, you are. That is not just the power of attention, that is the power of connecting with people and motivating them to achieve a shared goal.